Hey everybody, Jake here with TrendSpider. Happy Sunday and welcome to another episode in the November chart month. We have Ben, aka Pattern Profits, with us today. We're going to go over some monthly charts, kind of keep it on a longer term side of things. Obviously, the month isn't closed, but we still have, we still have a little time for the monthly candles to form, but we're getting there. So, Ben, very good to have you, and very interesting that we wore the same exact shirt today. How did that happen?
Hey, what do you know? Almost
Hey,
think we planned it that way, huh? You would think.
yeah, but the hilarious thing is we actually didn't. So for those that watching,
We
we
did not.
both have the TrendSpider shirt on. So that was pretty cool to see when Ben popped on. I'm like, hey, I know that shirt. So
We've
as
often
always,
been, on that
sorry.
same wavelength. We're on that same wavelength. We don't need to discuss it. We're there.
Hey, I love it. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about some monthly charts. I think you're going to touch on a little more the broad market side, and then I'm going to take over after that and go over a little more on the Bitcoin inflation side, gold, silver, and then a couple others. Before we dive into it, what a month it's been with the elections and just kind of just it seems like just money really funneling into the markets at first, and now we're kind of, I don't want to say stuck, but we're just kind of a little range bound. So I'm excited to see your charts and see what we're looking at on the monthly side of things for SPY. I think you said QQQ and IWM you're doing as well, or which
Yeah,
one?
yeah. I'm going to take a look at each of those and kind of tie that in with, I'm a growth stock momentum trader. That's, my area of expertise. So kind of tie that in with what a lot of us have been feeling. Like you said, we've been, kind of range bound. And you can see that in the monthly chart of the SPY, bumping its head up against that ascending trend line. We a couple times tried to peek, through there, and then ended up, pulling back. And there's been, quite a bit of action back and forth. And every time it feels like, okay, we're going to break down here, buyers step back in and up we go. But not really getting that real powerful, breakout, at least not yet. But like you said, there's still time. There's still time for this, candle to close here. So do we end up, over the next couple of weeks, and you have the holidays, you have a shortened week next week, do we end up pushing through there? And then, ideally, it's blue skies up once we get above that. So just kind of watching how this monthly candle closes is going to be important, kind of setting us up into year end.
Yeah, and I think it's important that with this broadening formation, I think every single monthly chart I've seen of SPY is highlighting this. So this is definitely becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think what that means too is the fact that when we finally do break through it, it's going to bring a whole new round of buyers in because everybody sees the same thing. Monthly
I
charts.
agree. We're all waiting on it. We see it forming. We see that, that breakout coming. And, we're all kind of hoping we get that big monster day where we push through. And you kind of, it's a different pattern here, but it's the same thing on the Qs. We've been stuck now for what's that, 4 months, right in this little box, in this little range. And we were inside last month and we just kind of poked out of it. And you think, okay, here we go. We're gonna take off from here, but it didn't happen. We're still kind of stuck in this box, in this range. So same thing here. Maybe if the SPY goes, then the tech follows, or maybe tech is the one that breaks out first and comes out of that box, and then the S&P follows. But yeah, this is why we feel like, well, I haven't made as much progress as I did back here, when it was just up each month. We're kind of waiting on that next leg. But this is healthy, because if you look how far we came, off of the March low, off that bottom, this is just kind of a pause. Hopefully, or ideally, that's the way I'm viewing it. This is kind of the pause before the next leg up.
It kind of looks like it's just stair stepping. I mean, if you go back to April 2019, we kind of had the same formation a little bit there, kind of range bound for about 3 months, and then we started the next leg up.
Yep. Right
Um,
in here.
that one, and then also in, I
We had
guess, what
right
is
in
that?
here too.
Yep,
Yep. Over
yep.
the summer. Yep. And those pauses that consolidates that prior gain and kind of catches its breath, and then the next leg. So I think that's kind of, what we're all hoping. At least the bulls are hoping we get that, soon. I think the most surprising thing to me is IWM, because this was the laggard
Yeah.
for quite a while. Off the
Mhm.
bottom, tech was ripping, the S&P was ripping, and the IWM was kind of languishing below the highs while the others were up into new highs. Well, look how quickly that reversed in one monthly candle. You got
Mhm.
the IWM, the small caps, up into new highs, and now they've kind of taken the lead. Um,
The old
so didn't
handoff.
really see that coming.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of those small caps were really hurting from this, but it's really moving now with the vaccine news. And one thing I want to point out is just that beautiful bounce off the volume shelf. Where did you anchor that volume by price?
I think that's if you go to the daily chart, or maybe it's the weekly. Yeah, this gap. So first you had the gap down, and then you had the gap up. So I've
Hmm.
been using this anchored VWAP with the gaps quite a bit, and there's another gap here. So just watching how they consolidate, after that gap. They'll have the big gap, kind of consolidate around it, and then up they go. Sometimes they consolidate a little bit underneath it, then get back above. We actually covered this in one of our prior seminars,
Yeah.
how the anchored VWAP from the gaps, really, really helpful to say who has control after the gap. Are they going to sell into that gap? Or are they going to let it, consolidate a little bit and then get right back in there, buying, and let it trend? But I think,
But for the monthly chart, where did you start the volume by price? Was it a capitulation point before that, or
oh
oh,
yeah,
okay, yeah, it was
yeah, I've got this going
January
way back.
2016.
Yeah, just because of how much, price action we want to include. We want to be able to see on a monthly chart. You're taking a big zoomed out view, so you want to include, a lot of that price action. I mean, if you can come in, a little bit more into here, and I mean, it's pretty much still the same general area, where all that volume is,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
support. So
yeah, that's
really,
one
once
thing.
it got through there, off it went.
One thing I like to point out, some like so for SPY, we had that swing low. I forgot when it was, but it was like 14 days ago or something. And for a while, there wasn't enough data on the daily chart to really anchor it from that swing low. There wasn't enough candles. But what is that? October
Here.
30th. Yep. And so now, if you anchor the volume by price from that bottom, we do have a general idea of kind of what's going on. But before I was anchoring it from the October 12th high because of that reason. There just wasn't enough data, and especially with monthly candles, you sometimes have to go back a couple years just to get enough candles to really get a fluid view of that volume profile and that type of thing.
Right. And even let me show you something else. Even though we're, kind of right there at highs or very close to it, near it, for growth stock traders like myself, it may not feel that way, especially when we're on these, looking at the monthly chart and just growth in general. If you look at, this is IBD's FFTY,
Hmm.
the um, and a lot of us use this top 50 as momentum, but you could see this isn't near the highs on the monthly, kind of like what we're seeing with the S&P, certainly with the IWM. this is range bound here and even below the prior high, which is why guys like myself that are growth stock momentum traders, we're not feeling, that we're not feeling those new highs like most of the others are. Those people who are more ETF and index traders and that stuff with it in the highs, we're below the highs here. So you think of another one like Teladoc, some of these stocks that had led us
Mhm.
to this point. Now those stocks, they're well off, of the highs. Teladoc's got what, 4 months now that it's pulled back. Um, Zoom, the other one,
Yeah, Zoom has got hurt.
Peloton. These are the ones that most of us were in. Us momentum guys, and as you can see, they're well off the highs. So if you're still holding some of those from back here in the run, the last couple months, you felt like, man, the indexes are in new highs. Why am I trailing them? Why is my portfolio lagging the index? And that's why it's these growth stocks are lagging a little bit. They're correcting. This is healthy though, because if you look at Zoom, how far it's come, this again, that pause is healthy. Back to Teladoc for a minute, it's corrected a little bit deeper, but it came a long way. This is healthy action. But again, for growth stock traders like myself, there's always a bull market somewhere.
No, yeah.
So you've got to find that relative strength. And what I like to do, especially on the monthly charts, if you're trying to figure out, okay, what's moving into new highs, whether it's a 52-week high list, or just that I run that volume scans and those type of things for those growth stocks that are moving into new highs. And you look at something like Upwork, this type of candle on the month, if you are involved in something like this for a growth stock trader, you're doing just fine, because this is powerful, into new highs. So while those prior leaders are pausing and catching their breath, you kind of have this new group of leadership stocks, and the majority of them just reported huge earnings, huge revenue growth. They all gapped up on their earnings reports. So, just to go through a few of those, GrowG is another one.
That's been a beauty. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So if you were still caught and stuck in the old guard, that was leading off of the March lows, and you're lagging a little bit on the indexes, there's a whole new group of leaders, and most of them are very young companies that are just now getting into their explosive growth stage. This is Celsius. We happened to talk about this one a while back too. But all of these guys that are moving into new highs now, really, really showing that relative strength. You kind of watch like these maybe pull back a little bit as the others kind of form the right side of their bases. So maybe while Teladoc and Peloton and Zoom and those others, especially now the country's starting to slowly close down again, some of those that were leading us back then, maybe they start to form the right sides. Maybe these kind of pull back a little bit or come back a little bit and allow us, those of us who missed it, or those of us who are still in those other growth stocks, to catch the next leg of these. And most of these, if this is the midpoint pause, most of these look like they still have a way to go.
And I was
Interest,
curious what
another one.
CELH has done. What do they do?
Energy drinks.
Energy drinks?
Yeah,
What?
they're kind of like Monster when they had the coffee drinks and heavy caffeine and that stuff. These are way I see it. Everybody's loading up and buying them on. It's like number 4, number 5 on Amazon, Everybody's working out from home on their Peloton, doing their Zoom meetings for work and drinking Celsius to keep their energy levels up.
Interesting. I
So
didn't realize that's what that was.
yeah, Celsius. A lot of us think of it as like the new Monster Energy, or if you go back like me, Hanson Natural. Those were super huge growth monster runs in those stocks before they got bought out. Interest is inside on the month, but it's close. It's
mhm.
close to making um, a new high there. Another one that went really was strong today, and I pointed this one out actually on Twitter, was this Zebra Technologies. This is one, again, boom, into new highs. These are the ones, that you want to grab. I see a lot of people are still talking about, and it has its place, but things like oil and the airliners and the cruise stocks and stuff, this is a very different pattern, very different look,
Mhm.
compared to these ones that are blasting off into new highs. Now, this may still make a run here. It may still, have more to go, but there's a lot of supply, a lot of overhead resistance here compared to these ones that, are working their ways into brand new highs.
It is interesting to see how much of a volume shelf is forming down there, though. How much volume is just aggregating down in the 29, 30 area. The thing with USO that's hard for me to kind of, take it seriously is just the fact that it was not tracking at all with oil there for like a few weeks, like just completely off. And I think it's just because there was so much like just so much weird stuff going on with oil going negative there because of all that weird USO stuff. And that was really interesting to see oil go negative. And that was kind of, I think, a function of USO having too many contracts and not enough people to actually get delivery of those. And that, I think, that kind of threw off USO there for a while.
Mhm.
I haven't really tracked it much. I generally am looking like at MRO, XOM to see what oil's
The
doing. But I
individual
mean,
names.
USO definitely is a
This is
trackable one. Just for a while, it was weird there.
this is OIH, which is, the oil industry holders. You mentioned MRO. Yeah, some of the individual names. I mean, it's a very similar setup, but it is going to be interesting. Do they make the turn here and, you know, kind of little bottoming formation? You've got your higher low in place on the monthlies for most of these, and now it's just a question:
Hmm.
are you going to get that higher high? Definition of trend reversal. Higher low, higher high. So we've got higher low in place. We're just waiting to see, can they print those higher highs and make the turn. Another one we were
I think
talking about.
MRO is my best.
Ah, nice. We were
It was,
talking about Bitcoin too.
yeah,
This is one,
yeah.
Silvergate, and I still don't understand this whole story, even though I've had it explained to me a couple times. Somehow they help with PayPal and their Bitcoin transactions. But look at this nice volume shelf it built here over several months, and then boom, as more and more start to use and accept Bitcoin. This one, yeah, this was a really nice move to get a hold of here, and from 50, it's a double in 2 months, from 15 to almost 31 today.
Wow.
So just from my perspective, it's just easier to play something like this in the growth space that's into new highs and blue skies ahead than trying to wait on those ones on the bottom.
Yeah.
For me, as a growth stock trader, it's easier to grab something like this, moving out into new highs, and especially when you have a nice base like this for it to come off, build off of. Yeah,
Hmm.
really, really nice move there.
Beautiful. Yeah, I've never heard of SI, so I'll have to put it on the list. And it IPO'd in what, late 2019? It looks like.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah, that's
Yeah, it was interesting to see PayPal really kind of creating that whole Bitcoin frenzy. I mean, pretty much as soon as they came out with I guess they mentioned, was it PayPal? Yeah, PayPal. And didn't SQ buy like a ton of, yeah, SQ, I think is what started it. They like bought like $50 million worth of crypto.
Yep.
And then like a week or two later, PayPal came in and just, that
Lit
was,
it on fire, man. They just
yeah.
really, yeah. So this goes back to here, and you can see I was just consolidating late. That's November of 2019. Had a little dip like most things did in March,
Mm-hmm.
and then off to the races.
Unreal. So let's look at do you mind looking at PayPal, just because it's interesting? PayPal hasn't done it didn't really go as high as you'd have thought after that announcement. And it hasn't really followed SI, which I think is interesting. Maybe it's kind of flagging there for the next leg up.
Yeah,
Um,
I kind of put this in that category with the Zoom and Teledoc and Peloton, and it had that huge run off the bottom. Shop is another one, e-commerce, all those e-payment, all of those. They just kind of consolidating here, and it seems like most of those prior leaders, and we're talking about the ones that really rallied hard off of the March bottom. Those tend to be the ones that are, pulling back and consolidating now. But to me, especially with the news we got this week, with more closures and the schools in New York closing again, and restaurants and bars closing again, that might be the catalyst that gets these going again. I look at like Peloton, which is doing kind of the same
ooh,
thing. This is now weekly, and those handoffs work nicely. Again, look at that volume shelf, the point of control on volume, and those anchored VWAP handoffs. But it's inside now, here in November. Does this stay inside and then start to work its way back up, forming the right side and kind of coming out of this flag pattern? That's kind of what I think this news does for these. At least that's what, I feel like they're trying to make a turn. If you saw the action the last couple days, I mean, these stocks were just down 2, 3, 4% day after day after day. And then after that announcement this week, they all got a bid. The
yeah.
Zoom and the Peloton and Teledoc, and all those started to lift. So I think there's a chance that maybe that's the catalyst that gets these turning back around. Either it comes out this month, or maybe it stays inside here and then comes out in December, and then you got a little trend line break that you could look for here, and then oops, why is it doing? Let's try that again. There we go. And kind of make that turn, and they all look similar. Teledoc, Zoom, Peloton kind of push through there, form the right side of these bases. And, with everything that's going on, closing down the restaurants again, the gyms, everybody's, back home and not in school. I think that's the catalyst that can get these, to make the turn.
Well, what's fascinating is the fact that Peloton's market cap is almost up there with like Delta Airlines now, and like some of these airlines. So it's been interesting to see just the flow of money in general, just kind of transferring over, and then kind of seeing that again. When I share a couple charts, I am going to touch on Macy's, because Macy's has been one that I traded. I'm still in a longer term position. It's not like I'm actively trading it. It's more of a position trade, but yeah, I really don't use a lot of oscillators, but I am going to go over, once I take over, just an example of kind of how I use like a MACD, vortex indicator, and percent range together. But I mean, you can see that volume shelf, and it has the same kind of look as anything that got hit from COVID, MRO, XOM, all of those. But it was interesting to see, this week when they came out with earnings. You had a little bit of a dip, but that dip got bought up almost immediately. And we're still technically not at what was that? The June spike when we kind of
Mhm.
like somehow got euphoric there for a couple
Yeah,
weeks,
right.
and then
Briefly.
pulled right
Uh,
back. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
that's what you're looking for is you've got that, like we were talking about with the others, you've got that higher low in place now, and now you're just looking for that higher high, and that's your trend reversal.
And I know you haven't talked about this yet, but I see that you're liking the new Ripster MA clouds as well.
Fantastic. I love it. It's so subtle in the background, and when you're using anchored VWAPs and you have these other levels and lines that you're looking at, to just be able to see that subtle cloud in the background, even though it's the same moving averages I've been using forever, it's such a different look and feel to it on the charts. And especially as I've used anchored VWAP more and more, yeah, there's no confusion, in my charts. They're nice and clean, and it's pretty. And yeah, it's fantastic. And it's new. I know you guys have just recently added it, but boy, I got used to it quick. I was putting it on every time frame. Over the weekend, I had made sure I had changed it on every time frame.
It's a cool concept. I've seen a lot of people really adopting it in their charts, and it's really cool to just see how popular they've become. And yeah, it's a cool addition that we were able to kind of randomly get out pretty quick. Had a call with Ripster like one day, and within a week it was there, and I was like, wow, I wish we could do everything that quick. But yeah, no, it's a cool concept. And I think over time a lot of people are going to be using this, and it's really just nice to see how well price action respects those clouds. I mean, on the way down, Macy's was rejected at that cloud every single time after it initially went to the downside there. So it'll be interesting to see if price action can break through it and we kind of have that cloud switch over, and see what happens. So we went over some growth stuff. Do you mind if I take over and we'll look at Bitcoin, kind of the main driver of some of these ideas that we were talking about, PayPal, SI, and we'll go over a couple other ones. All right, so Ben went over some of the stocks that have benefited from Bitcoin moving up, crypto really catching the eye of a lot of not even retail traders. It seems like retail hasn't even caught on yet, Ben. I mean, a lot of people are keep showing it, and Brian Shannon was the original person I saw kind of pull this up, but the Google searches of Bitcoin have not moved up like they did in 2017. So that's kind of interesting to see. Is this just institutional buying? I've seen people say that Jeff Bezos sold $2 billion worth of Amazon to buy Bitcoin. There's all types of conspiracy theories out there, but it has been interesting to see that we haven't had necessarily, at least on my end, some of my friends who know absolutely nothing about the market calling me frantic when they should buy their first Bitcoin.
It makes you a firm believer that there still could be plenty of gas in the tank, because until
Absolutely.
you don't really get to that stage of where you really have liftoff and euphoria about it until the retail crowd comes in.
Yep.
So, and until we get back out there and your barber's telling you he just bought Bitcoin, there's plenty of upside left. The
It's kind
chart
of
looks
crazy.
great.
We're not even at all-time highs yet. So you guys can see here on the chart, what I did was I just pulled up the monthly chart. And the way I made this, it's a little untraditional, but this is the way I like to do it. Sometimes I'll start my areas at a body, especially if there's two bodies in a row. So in this case, we closed here in November right around 13.9, and then we opened right around that same area, which is pretty common. I mean, it's a day later. However, I do like to sometimes draw these from the top of a body like this. You can see here how we tagged it almost to the cent in May of 2019, June of 2019, and then pulled back. And now what did we do? We moved right up to that area in October, and then we started to break out. So the question is, do we tag all-time highs this month? Is it next month? I don't think at this point it's a question of if it's going to happen. I think it's a question of when. And it's interesting because some of these other coins like Litecoin, Ethereum, they're just still getting started. I mean, if we go to Litecoin's still like way below where we saw it a couple of years ago. And you know, and this is kind of the volume shelf thing, right? I've been looking at this volume shelf now for quite some time. And essentially what I did was I anchored the volume by price from the all-time high, and just look at that volume shelf. I mean, anytime you see a setup like this with this type of just aggregation of volume kind of being accumulated here, it's always something to keep in mind. You anchor a VWAP here, you can see we finally broke out of that Alpha Trends anchored VWAP from this 2019 summer high. And then if we anchor another VWAP from this area, you can see this would be the next area to look at, around 108, 110. And I brought up this a couple months ago. It was definitely a little early, but you know, this is definitely something that's lagging. And the way I like to look for laggards a lot of the time is just setting a constant in the technicals. So in this case, the constant is the all-time high anchored VWAP. So you can see we're nowhere even near that. But if you go to like something like Ethereum and then Bitcoin, we're way past that. And so you can kind of get an idea of what's lagging, what's not, simply by just creating a constant on the chart across the symbols. In this case, it's the anchored VWAP from this all-time high. And you can see Ethereum is also a leader. We broke out in July, kind of consolidated here for a few months, and now we're starting to move up again. So it will definitely be interesting to see what happens on the crypto side of things. We do have kind of a similar ascending triangle here trying to break out, but just based on a lot of smart people I know in the industry, it doesn't seem like this is going away anytime soon. And I want to talk about, you know, are cryptocurrencies stealing the show from gold and silver? I mean, if we look at SLV and GLD, the chart is not exactly the same. Now, we have had quite a move up in SLV. That was a really fun one to play when we were moving up. But we have the same thing here on SLV. We have this volume shelf. We have consolidated for a couple months. Ben, what do you think about that? I mean, the thing is I think the whole crypto market at this point is maybe, I don't know, I'm completely pulling this out of my butt, but I think it's what, 500 billion, 600 billion ish. And then you look at silver and gold, which are trillions of dollars in overall market cap and just overall money flowing in those areas.
What amazes me as an equities guy, this is now the risk on, risk off signal for us in equities. Mm-hmm. If Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum, if they have a great overnight session, risk on, you know, in the morning, and the equities guys and the growth guys are like raring and ready to go, you know. So it's pretty incredible how that perspective has changed. And yeah, I don't hear nearly as much talk right now about gold and silver and the metals as I do, you know, the cryptos, especially Bitcoin, with you know, the popularity. And who was it? I know there was another big fund guy that came out, a hedge fund.
Jim Simons, I think, was
it's just giving it more and more legitimacy.
Well, the funny thing is he's been bearish on it for the last like 2 or 3 years, and now all of a sudden he's bullish, and everyone's like, oh, maybe I should sell. So that's been interesting because he's, you know, he I think had quite an influence on you know, calling at least that a bearish setup. I think in 2017, I remember him being very vocal on anti-Bitcoin, and then all of a sudden now he flips the script, and it's just going to be interesting to see if that really is the, you know, is it him saying that, or is it him buying all of it, right? So yeah. The thing about Bitcoin as well, there's a lot of people who would never sell their Bitcoin. So, you know, as much, this may not just be a lot of people buying Bitcoin. This could finally be just enough people with a lot of money buying it and nobody selling anymore. I feel like you get to that threshold in Bitcoin where, you know, people are like, I'm hodling. You know, I think hodl was created through crypto, just that funny term. And, you know, it could just be a little bit of a function of people just not selling, and we have to discover higher prices in order to find sellers.
And the fact that there is limited supply.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the thing
dollar.
too.
There is no limited supply of the dollar.
That
So
is
it makes a
well,
difference.
well, and Ripple, right? Everyone was so bullish on Ripple, and Ripple is like a poster child of like what crypto shouldn't be, right? There's so much supply left to be dumped on the market. Every time you get a spike, you just get a constant dump. I think
Mhm.
they have like $100 billion coins or something that they can release. It's some crazy number.
Right.
And I remember one of my buddies who is actually pretty smart, but he's like, oh, I can see Ripple going to like $100 one day. And I'm like, dude, at that at that price, Ripple would be worth like $10 trillion. I mean, maybe it can happen. Who knows? Maybe Ripple's, something I don't know. But just from people who I know who are very into crypto, Ripple is like the anti-crypto, and so that's always interesting to
Mhm.
see people trading Ripple. I used to be one of them until I realized, holy crap, this thing can't keep a gain worth anything. Even if you look at like Bitcoin to
Yeah.
Ripple, I mean, the ratio is just destroyed. Ripple was at 29 cents when Bitcoin, I think, was at like 10 or 11,000. So like just the ratio is way off. So, you know, Brian Shannon, he says Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and then Link. Link's one of those ones that is kind of more of a technology play, but that's one that has definitely been a leader in the market. At least when crypto took off, Link was kind of leading it. Do you follow Link much?
No, not so much. Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I don't. I learned my lesson. I don't trade them anymore because I have
Oh, I
kids
don't
and
either.
family that I need to be awake for during the day. I learned my lesson.
I
But
I
the
talked
fact
about
that
this
it
on
changes, that it trades around the clock is the thing that, if I was in my 20s and single again, it'd be a different story. I'd be glued to it all night long.
yeah,
But, as far as these hedge fund guys too, nothing changes sentiment towards it like price. So the stronger that price gets for Bitcoin, the more I expect these guys that have been, bearish on it or avoiding it, to come out and speak positively against it, towards it, because that's what price tends to do.
Yeah, I mean, Link Link is definitely starting to break out again.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things. I'm the same way. I was in Litecoin. I got stopped out. And I just can't stand crypto, at least at this point. Just simply because I think, you know, all of these brokers, exchanges, are all about blockchain, but they're going to hold your money long. And I talked about this with Brian. They're going to hold your money longer than a typical bank would or a broker would to clear the funds. And it's like,
Mhm.
isn't that the whole point of blockchain, to make this thing like immediate so I can, buy this when I want?
Right.
So that's one of my frustrations, but also same thing. It's kind of that thing where there's so many things in the world that can have price movements. The Pokemon cards are like a thing again, like people selling like old school Pokemon cards. Just because Pokemon cards are going up in value doesn't mean I'm going to go do it. I like to stick with something I am familiar with. Um, you know, Commercial real estate. Commercial real estate's taking a beating. Does that mean I'm going to go try short commercial real estate? No. I like to stay in my lane. Does
Mhm.
that mean I'm going to miss out on opportunities? Of course, but there's no way you can always get every opportunity. It's just not going to happen. And it's best when you stick to what you know. I've been trading stocks since I was 12 years old, or at least entered the market when I was 12 years old. I wouldn't say I was trading like this and looking at technicals at that age. It's funny.
Right.
I was actually only looking at the line chart back then, and
Is that right?
yeah, well, the line chart tells you a lot of information. It takes out a lot of the noise
I still
sometimes.
use it sometimes.
Oh, on
Yes.
my phone, like when I'm looking on my phone, a lot of the time, there's that setup that is just never goes wrong. It's the setup that Neo had a couple months ago. You've got that impulse move, just a kind of a slight pullback, consolidation, then the next rip. And line charts just have such a unique and such a noticeable view. When that setup happens, it's like, okay, I need to get in. Silver had it before it ripped, so it's just I love the line chart, but I also like to be a little more technical too. So
Mhm.
um, those are cryptos. Let's go into MJ, the old marijuanas. This is an interesting one. One, we kind of have this, I don't want to call it a double bottom because we did kind of have this capitulation here. But if you look at the overall bodies, we kind of double bottomed here. I'll just draw a circle here, and then I'll draw another circle here. And so, we are trying to form a base here. If I anchor the volume by price from this high, you'll see here that essentially, we are right at this previous high before the meltdown. And so, if we can break through this, June 2020 high of around 1550, 1530, like you said, we technically have higher lows. We need to break through that previous high, right when we saw this in June, and we'll have to see if this catches a bid. But if it does, the anchored VWAP is right around 1850, and then from there we'll see what happens. But on top of that, we kind of have that Litecoin view where we have so much volume aggregating here. Sometimes this can create a launch pad for price, and let's see what happens. I personally trade my money right now. I kind of took a break with the house and just all these crazy expenses. And, it's so easy when you have a lot of expenses coming in, you make a trade, you lose $1,000 and you're like, holy shit, that was my couch I was going to buy. So, it's been nice to still be able to trade a little bit through a family account that my mom and I have been trading forever. So I have been able to get a little bit back in the game. And this is one that I did take a little bit of a bite on last week. But this is interesting. It's not just MJ, it's all the stocks: CGC, Cron, Tilray. Tilray, I can't get behind that one, but it's part of the sector. It's likely going to move up just based on the new presidency. If we ever get a real answer, concrete answer on who the hell is going to be our next president. But if things go as they have kind of initially panned out to be, I do think this sector is going to be an interesting one, and the price action kind of says that. And you're in a state that kind of has more and more kind of lax regulations on this too.
Yes, you kind of get the feeling that it's going to happen either way, for the nation. It's just a matter of the timing of it. Yep. If it is Biden, it's probably going to happen a lot sooner. And you can just kind of see in the charts too that they're going sideways. They're basing now. They're starting to make that turn, and you do have a nice base and volume shelf there to build off of going forward. And like I said, I think it happens either way. I think the charts are even, starting to tell you that it's going to happen. It's just, we're not sure, is it going to happen, in the next 6 months, in the next 2 years, in the next 4 years, how quick is it going to happen? But it's going to.
Well, I think GRWG is your leader there, right? I mean, GRWG is absolutely blasting. GRWG is like the opposite of this chart.
Yes, but they're out there buying. They're like the Home Depot of supplies. They're buying up all their competitors, and they're just in that mega growth stage, preparing for when the laws change throughout the US, because I think they're really restricted right now in the areas that they can buy and do this. But as that spreads out throughout the nation, which, like I said, is only a matter of time, the TAM, the total addressable market there, looking out is monstrous.
It really is. And I mean,
I don't think it's any coincidence too that Bob Nardelli, who was the CEO of Home Depot at one point, he's on the board of GrowGen. So when you see them out there buying these smaller, supply stores and getting bigger and bigger and bigger, you kind of see where that footprint came from.
IIPR, if I can say the ticker right. This is another one that's kind of leading the pack here. We just broke out of this previous high back in 2019. So this is one definitely on the MJ side of things to keep an eye on too. We got that volume shelf, nice case study on that. The last one I want to go over is actually Disney. Disney's one of those weird ones. It's like a hybrid COVID stock, right? You've got your theme parks that have gotten crushed, which killed the stock price. But then you also have the streaming service that has really kind of picked up on some of those revenues. And this has been one that's been really interesting to see play out. I'll anchor a volume by price from this high. You can just see beautiful, beautiful rip off the volume shelf over the last month or two. And, this one's breaking out of some pretty crucial areas. And what do you think about Disney?
It's near and dear to my heart. I could probably drive a golf ball from my front patio and hit Space Mountain, from where I'm at. I'm that close. Yeah, I've been following the trends too. It's not hard to do here locally, and it's still quiet in as far as the parks go during the week, but they're busy on the weekends. They're still at like one third capacity,
Hmm.
but they've had some weekends where they're hitting, that number, and where their reservation system, they've changed a lot of things. Um, so their streaming is fantastic. My kids are huge fans. In fact, we were just watching new episodes of The Mandalorian. They just came out. So I'm a huge Disney fan. I think it's only a matter of time for this stock, and I'm thrilled to see the stock starting to get it back together and climb that right side. This is an important breakout here, and then getting into those highs would be next. But I think it's only a matter of time before they, continue to increase the capacity. From what I heard, I think the fireworks are going to come back. So, they've put a lot of stuff on hold that people, really enjoy and come to see. But slowly they're starting to integrate those back in. So, yeah,
Nice.
the stock kind of reflects that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Well, I think that's all the time we have. Ben, I love having you on. I love talking stocks with you, and it's
Same,
cool to
my
see you
friend.
using the MA Cloud by Ripster. So definitely, if you guys haven't used it, check it out. It's just under MA Moving Average Cloud on our indicators menu. So that's where you can find it. Ben, I'm sure you'll be on again soon. Remember, everyone, we still do have the 50% off Black Friday sale. So remember to check that out. We have a 7-day free trial, so you don't have to automatically pay to get the 50%. If you sign up for the 7-day free trial, you're automatically locked into the 50% to try it out before you buy. And definitely let us know if you have any questions. Once again, Ben, thank you so much. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. We are starting to get to that time of the year where the holidays are coming in, and I hope you and your family have a great, healthy holidays.
Thanks so much, Jake. I appreciate it. Same to you and yours. Thank
Hey,
you.
hey, we'll see everyone soon. Thanks for watching.